I have the honor and privilege of being with Mr. Tham Sai Choy, Chairman KPMG Asia Pacific and Managing Partner of KPMG in Singapore. Mr. Tham, it's an honor to have this interview with you. And let me just start off with my very first question. What inspired you to be an accountant?
This is so long ago. That's a really hard question. I have to think back to 3.5 decades. I knew I always wanted to be in the business area. It is where the wealth is created to improve the quality of lives. It's the story of Singapore, of Southeast Asia, and now the rest of Asia about what business, successful economies can do to take people out of poverty, to generate jobs, to distribute wealth and distribute income. So I always knew I wanted to be in that area, and being a practicing accountant was as good a place to start as any. I wasn't sure where I was going to end up, so to some extent it's a little bit of a surprise that I ended up exactly where I started.
What are the challenges you have faced throughout the 3.5 decades in this profession?
The world has changed a lot in the last three decades. It's hard to for me to know for sure, but I can't imagine another similar period of time within 3 decades where the business world has changed so much. When we look at the big word around globalization, it has wreaked its challenges on all businesses, including the part of the work that I do. So as a practicing accountant, what that has meant is instead of being an expert in the little bit of territory that you got your training in, a lot of the work that we do are now with companies that are in 100 different countries and trying to understand what they do, how they do it, how you do the right financial reporting for the different things that happen in different places, and as an auditor to make sure we audit that right. The continuing education that goes with it, that is a huge challenge and a huge commitment. But it's a good challenge because it means everything I do every year, there's no year I did the same job as the previous year. Everything is fresh, everything has been coming from a different angle, technology, supply chains, consumer tastes, geopolitics, and so on. So this is really talking about a time when I compare, when we talk about 3 decades, maybe it doesn't sound like a long time, but I was like the first computer auditor in my office because computers were new and didn't quite exist yet and just being invented. Certainly mobile phones hadn't been invented yet. And you think about how the markets have changed, how companies have changed. You look at the Fortune 500 companies, many of them didn't exist 30 years ago, and the skills that we've needed to acquire to be able to serve them well in the financial reporting area. That's a huge challenge running along the very quick pace of innovation.
For 3.5 decades, there have been many changes. Can you highlight some of the defining moments?
Almost every day, something new comes up. Every day is a highlight, almost. Particularly, I mean, I have the luxury of now overseeing 2,500 people in Singapore and 34,000 people in Asia Pacific. So by the time the question is posed to me, a number of people have tried having a go at the question, and there are no simple answers. So in a rapidly changing world, there are so many challenging questions. Business models are being invented that nobody has tried before. Nobody fully understands. A lot of it very experimental. Some of it will happen well, and some of it will happen not so well. Some of it will take off, some won't. When we are trying to do the financial reporting, trying to figure out whether this company is a going concern, not a going concern, has a massively fantastic future, and be the next Google or Microsoft and so on, or be one of many casualties along the way of innovation. We have to keep track of all that, and that's a massive everyday challenge as we do our part of the business.
So there's something new every day to keep you going. But what profession would you be in if you were not an accountant?
Well, if I weren't an accountant, I would invent the accounting profession. Or rather, if there wasn't an accounting profession, I would invent the accounting profession. I wouldn't have wished for myself to be anything else. It has been a great entry point into business. It's brought me into contact with all the biggest innovations in business, which have actually affected everyday lives. It has brought me into contact with the emergence of China, into the technology, all the cyber possibilities that continue to come up, the emergence of Singapore as a global city, the mobility of people around the world, and how we utilize that mobility to empower them to fulfill their potential, and to be part of one of the big four, and there are only four in the world, and there's no other organization that has a kind of reach that presents the breadth of challenges. I really couldn't have asked for anything else.
So in the panel discussion, you mentioned that even with many years of experience, it is challenging to keep up with the changes. So how can we as undergraduates further improve ourselves to face what is out there?
I think the formal education system as we understand it, where you enter the education system at probably around 6 and you graduate at around 21 or 22, and in Singapore depending whether you're male or female, and then retire at 55, which that whole model has changed totally. The people who are joining the workforce now will not retire at 55 or 65. It might more be, say, 75 at least. But if you look at the education system, it continues to start at 6 and finish at around 21, 22. And that's the challenge for all of us here. How are you going to have like 15 years of education prepare you for 50 years of employment at a time when the world is changing faster than ever? I'd put it to you, it's actually not possible. And we all need to be very conscious that for us to continue to be relevant, to continue to be productive, to continue to be able to do the things of the business world, not just in 2014, but in 2024 and 2034 and 2044. It's a duty on all of us to keep abreast of everything that's happening, keep ourselves fresh with new solutions, and not aim to do the same job we did last year and the same job we did 10 years ago.
Mr. Tam, I would like to end off with this one final question. Do you have any advice for undergraduates studying accountancy?
Well, what I would say is, I wish I was just graduating and just about to enter the accounting profession, because I think some of the most exciting things that's going to be happening are yet to come. The next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, the world will change a lot. The business world will change a lot. The lives that we lead will improve a lot. The careers that we pursue will have a lot more challenges, a lot of interesting challenges. All of it will enrich our lives. So my suggestion will be to plunge into it, to be fully prepared for everything that the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years has to offer.
Thank you, Mr. Tam, for your time. It was indeed an interesting and insightful experience.